Live now.
It says it's live, but
Go ahead.
well, where's the? Shouldn't I see myself? One second, guys. It says 0 viewers. There we go. Okay, cool. Okay, cool. Well, welcome everybody. This is Richard, founder of shorttermrentalsecrets.com and Airbnb superhost. And I really appreciate everybody taking time out of their busy day. It's a Friday afternoon and on really short notice to join me on the YouTube Live. But there's something that's happened. It's been in the news, and by now you may have heard of it, but it's super pressing, super important, and I think it's something that everybody needs to take care of immediately. In fact, as soon as I heard the news this morning at around, I don't know, I started at about 5 a.m., about the major security breach that Equifax suffered. 143 million people's data has been breached. Somebody hacked in there, and it's not just a minor breach. It's, you know, passwords, date of birth, in some cases driver's licenses, basically everything that's required for somebody to access and steal your identity and open up a credit card or apply for a mortgage and basically ruin your financial strength. I thought it was important that we get to it. So as soon as I heard about it, I took actions personally, and then I texted all my loved ones and relatives and so on. And I thought, gee, I have to let everybody else know exactly what to do and why it's so important. And I thought it was critical that we get this video out. So Charles and I were going to be filming something else today, and I decided that, you know, this is so important and so timely. I've been meaning to talk about the importance of creditworthiness, and one of the things that we get asked all the time from viewers of the channel and on the Facebook group is, how do you grow your business? When is it the right time to add, and so on? And implicit in all of that is the credit worthiness of the applicant. And so we're going to talk about credit and the importance of credit. But first, let's turn to the news and why it's so urgent. It's breaking news. Apparently sometime in about July, Equifax was hacked. 142 million people, which is, I think there's 310 million people in America, so it's almost, you know, half the population, some of whom don't have any credit and aren't of the age to have credit and so on. So it's a really significant portion of the United States population. All of your data, all of your passwords, all of your security, all of your mother's maiden name, all the stuff that protects your identity is potentially in bad hands. What they want to do with it, to be determined, if they do anything. But the reason it's so urgent is they could be doing something like right now. So you need to take action. We're going to put the link on where to click. And basically what you're going to do is enroll yourself in their free identity prevention, theft, security thing. It's not perfect, but it's better than nothing. Right now you're completely exposed, and it's completely free. And it's so overwhelmed right now that the sites are not working very well. Think about it. There's about 140 million people exposed, and everybody's going to the same site at the same time trying to protect their identity. So the sites are crashing, but keep trying. It's really important that you get it done. And I did it this morning. What I found was they gave me a date. I think it was September 12th or something like that. So basically in about 4 or 5 days, they'll be able to have processed the volume that got there before me and start to protect my identity. So I guess in some ways I'm vulnerable for the next 4 or 5 days. That list is probably growing now. Maybe it's a week out or so. But basically I go back to the website in about 4 or 5 days. I enroll in something, and my understanding is it's basically going to put a hold, if you will, on my credit. And I've had identity theft in the past, and it just sucks. It completely sucks. It's so disruptive. It's so invasive. You feel terrible, and you can't figure out like why or where, and you have to explain to people. And you know, credit is so important in all facets of life today. We're going to get to why it's important in your Airbnb business, but just realize that credit's important in everything, and you don't even necessarily know when it's being checked. So if you go to get a cell phone, or you add a cell phone, or you buy a Apple iPhone at Apple, they're going to check your credit. All these things require good credit. And if somebody's stolen your identity, it's a real problem. And the other thing is, if you have this security protection layer on it, it can be disruptive too. So if you're planning anything, like I'm in the middle of buying a property. Now with this security, additional security, which I welcome, on my identity, that process is going to be longer and more of a pain in the butt and require more explanation. And so to the extent that you're looking to get a car or a new property or anything that requires credit, just expect it to be longer and slower. But it's really important that you actually do it. So the first thing I want to do is implore everybody to click on the link. If the servers are down, don't give up, just go back. I know Charles did it. How many times did you do it today, Charles?
At least 3.
He said he had to go back at least 3 times before he could protect his identity. And just to put that in perspective, when I clicked on it, I was told that my identity was potentially compromised. Charles, was that the same for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, Charles went through, took him 3 times to get onto the website. When he finally did, in fact, get on the website, his identity was also potentially compromised. My sister did it as well. She was apparently in the clear. So I don't know what the rhyme or reason is, but I think it's really important that you do this. And so let's talk a little bit about the importance of credit and why this is so important. So when you go to do anything, whether it's get a car, rent an apartment, buy a place, everyone's going to check your credit worthiness. And it's basically like, how likely are you to repay a loan? And it's separate and apart from how much money you make. It's separate and apart from how much money you have in the bank. This is just sort of a history, if you will, of when you borrow money, do you repay it? And if you do, in fact, repay it, do you repay it quickly? Do you repay it on time? Are you slow? This is pretty basic stuff, but the reason this is so important is there's several factors that a lender is going to consider when they decide to loan you money for a car or a house or apartment. One is your income, so it's better to show a W-2 income where you work for a company and they pay you regularly, and you pay taxes on that amount. Like, that's the most strength and most credible form of income for any lender. They take comfort in that. So you want that W-2 to show as high a number as possible, obviously. The second thing that they're going to look at is your assets. How much money do you have saved? How much do you have in stocks? What other assets do you have? And then liabilities. How much do you owe for cars and credit cards and school loans and all of that? Now, those 3 things are really, really important. They're kind of tied together, right? The more money you make, the more you can save. And if you're prudent in your spending, the less liabilities you have. And that's paints a part of the financial picture. Not very much of that can you actually control. In other words, if you make $25,000 or $50,000 a year in income, you can't just suddenly say, well, I want to make $1 million. Yes, we are working towards that. We can go get a second job. We can be entrepreneurial. We can do all of that. But my point is, it's a little far-fetched to say I'm going to go from 50,000 to 1 million just because I want to go buy a house, right? There's like some reason that you're earning $50,000 currently. Likewise, if you needed to take school loans, you're not going to repay the debt very quickly. If you have a car payment, you're not going to repay that. So a lot of those things that we just talked about are outside of your control. The reason credit is so important is that it stays with you for life, and you do have the ability to control that. So I was always brought up, my father was really, really adamant about the importance of credit quality and credit worthiness, whether it be for cars or homes or business, anything that you need. It's sort of like right behind the scenes. A lot of people don't pay a lot of attention on it. And in fact, I thought he was crazy when I was getting out of college and I needed a co-signer on an apartment, and he refused. He wouldn't loan me his credit. He's my father. He loved me. He would loan me the money, but he wouldn't co-sign any loans for me under any circumstances, because in his mind, his credit was something that he really valued and he would never risk. And even though he trusted me implicitly, he didn't want his ability to buy and be able to get loans potentially heard from anyone, not even his son. So I grew up in a household where credit and credit worthiness and maintaining that credit was super important. And I want to share with you that it's important that you look at it too. It's especially important if you want to grow your Airbnb business, and that's the point of this whole channel. People always ask about mortgages and how do you get it and when do you expand? And I can tell you, straight up, you need to be looking at your credit. I subscribe, let me get it right now. I subscribe to Experian. They have an app. I spend about $30 a month on it, and I get reports. Anytime anybody checks my credit, anytime my credit score goes up or down, it gets pushed to me. And so I monitor it, and I think it's a good practice. I don't know that everybody needs to pay for it. And in fact, I think Equifax, as part of their security protection, is likely going to be providing similar service. So once you click on the link, there's a good chance that you're going to get this for free, but then pay attention. And if you haven't really spent enough time or energy thinking about your credit worthiness, now's a perfect time, and that's why we're doing this video. I meant to do a video about credit and credit importance and how to improve your credit, and then the security breach thing came. I jumped into action, and I was like, oh, I've got to fix it for myself, and I've got to fix it for loved ones. I need to notify everyone. I sent Charles a text like 6 in the morning, and that's why I wanted to get on this YouTube Live and just let everybody know how to protect yourself, and also take the opportunity not only to protect yourself, but to focus on it. If you're serious about growing your business and you are going to do more and more in the way of real estate, oh good, this worked, Charles, then credit importance is like the only thing you can control, and you should. So I'm going to share with you my credit, and then we're going to talk about what goes into a credit score so that you can figure out how to improve yours. And of course, I think all of the credit reporting agencies are slammed. I couldn't get into this before, and that's one of the challenges of going live, is you can't necessarily have all your props set up and so on. But I do want to share this with you because I think it's really important. Let's see. Okay. So there's a few items here that go into what's known as a FICO score, and there's 3 different agencies that report them. They all have slightly different algorithms, and in many cases, when you go out and get a larger loan, the loan provider, the bank, will either pick their favorite one, or in some cases they run all 3 and then they take the average. And it's interesting that even though there's a fair amount of similarities in how they calculate them, they all get their reportings differently, and so you could have a very different score on one versus the other. So I'm going to go ahead and show you mine here. Charles, can you see that okay?
There's a delay, so I won't see it for about 20 seconds.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, this says that my credit score today, as reported by Experian, is 825, which they call exceptional. FICO score goes up to 850, and all I can say is I really relish and love the fact that it's 825. It really helps me. It gets me better rates. It gets me more yeses. It really allows me to be much more in control. Now, it's not going to overcome W-2 income and assets and liabilities, right? It's not like any one thing dominates, but they're looking for a consistency so that, you've got income, you can repay the loan, you've got assets in case that something happens that's terrible, you don't have a lot of liability, so you're never going to be forced to sell anything. Oh, and by the way, you're a good person, you've borrowed money in the past, and you repay it. So according to Experian, the way they're calculating my 825 right now is payment history is the largest component. 35% of your FICO score is based on your payment history. And so what that means is, like, do you pay on time or early? If you're delayed, that gets reported to the credit scores, and that can have a bad impact. The second largest thing that they look at is outstanding debt. 30% of your score is based on how much debt you have outstanding. Now, perversely, you would think having no debt is actually superior, but that's not the case. For a credit score, my understanding, and I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a credit analyst, so take it with a grain of salt, but it's kind of accurate, is that they would rather see you have some debt so that you have a history of repaying that debt. So in some ways, having some debt is actually good, and 30% of your FICO score is based on your outstanding debt. The next most important thing is the length of credit. 15% of your FICO score is based on how long you've had credit. So if you don't have credit, if you're a newbie, if you're younger, maybe you're just out of college or whatever, and you don't have any credit, this is really important to get your credit started. In fact, going back to my father, I remember he encouraged me to apply for a credit card, like way before I could, and not in his name, but in my name. And the point was to take on some debt, and I actually financed it, and purposefully. I don't know, whatever I got loaned, maybe it was $500. I took out 300 or 400 of it. I didn't max it out, and then every month I just made payments, and it was just an exercise in consistency and showing the agencies that I can borrow money and I'm responsible and I pay it back on time. And the 15% of your FICO score is on the length of credit. So it's like one of those sayings that we always hear, which is like, when is the best time to get started? Well, yesterday. Since you can't get started yesterday, the next best time is right now. And so if you don't have credit, get some credit. The next thing is pursuit of new credit. 10% of your FICO score is on people that are checking your credit score, what's called hard checks. And these are people that are thinking about loaning you money. That's a negative thing. Even though you don't have that money being loaned to you, the fact that, you know, Apple's checking on you and Nissan is checking on you and this apartment owner is checking on you and this bank is checking on you, what that tells potential people that are going to loan you money is that you're seeking a lot of credit. And they don't know how much of that's going to actually come through, so they just penalize you for the search. So I'm always really, really hesitant to allow people to check my credit. In fact, I don't let anybody do it until I'm certain I'm going to buy that, or I'm going to get that car. A lot of times people say, oh, let me just check your credit, and don't do that. And then the final thing is 10% is the type of credit that you have used. So the FICO score will consider your mix of credit cards, retail credit cards, installment loans, finance company accounts, mortgage loans. It's not necessary to have one of each, and it's not a good idea to open credit accounts that you don't intend to use. And that's what the FICO score says. So anyway, it's out of 850. 825, which is where I am today, says it's exceptional. That's their words, not mine. I think to get really superior rates and for the credit score to help you, you want to have something in the mid 700s or higher. I think that that's actually quite challenging. I think the average credit score is maybe in the 600s, mid to high 600s, which is good. I don't think it'll block you, but if you check your credit score and you're in the 600s, you want to try and get that to the 700s. If you check your credit score and you're in the 700s, take some steps to try and get that into the 800s. Good credit is your friend. It definitely won't hurt. And that just brings me to the final thing I want to talk about, which is just how much of a pain it is if you don't take this action, you don't sign up for the security protection, and you do have your identity stolen. That happened to me in like 1992, which was not a cybercrime. There was no internet then, but I did make a deposit in a bank. It must have been an inside job, and I needed the money. I don't know what I was doing, buying furniture, moving into an apartment, something like that. And it turned out that like there was a 5-day hold on the assets, and I had to come back on a Thursday to withdraw it. And when I got there, there was no money there. And so I had to sign all these subpoenas. I had to give sworn testimony. I had to look at like video cameras, and the detectives were questioning me to see if I was stealing the money or if I was working with somebody to steal the money. It was very time consuming. It was no fun at all. And then as a consequence, I had to change all of my different like passwords and security. And every time I went for credit, you know, for the next year or two, it was a big problem. So just try and prevent that. You'll do yourself a lot of favor. And most importantly, once you prevent it, take the opportunity to get intelligent about your credit score, set a goal to like improve your credit score. That's really great advice no matter what you do with your life. To have a better credit score just makes life easier and better, but especially if you want to be doing things that require leverage, which real estate does, whether you're doing it traditional real estate, you're buying your own properties, or you want to grow an Airbnb, short-term rental type business that requires multiple properties. And so the single best thing you can do, and the only thing you can actually control, is your credit score. So that was the purpose of this video. I hope you found it super helpful. I think it's important that you do it right now. In fact, I was mentioning earlier that Mark Zuckerberg on Facebook, was hacked not too long ago, and it turns out that like his password had been stolen years earlier. So the breach, your identity could be stolen right now while we're on YouTube Live. Somebody could be applying for a credit card right now, or it may just lay dormant. They may do nothing for 4 years or longer, and then out of nowhere just strike. And it'll always happen at the worst moment. You'll finally find your dream house, your dream property, your dream whatever, and that's when you'll find out that like, you took out all these credit cards and they're unpaid, and you have this mortgage and you didn't know anything about it. So protect yourself and then take action to make sure it's right. I'm going to pause here. Again, we're going to have the link that's free I don't know anything about the company. I just am doing exactly, I'm expressing to you what I've done for myself, which is click the link. I'm believing that they're going to do it. It's really ironic and actually disturbing that Equifax, who's supposed to be, in cybersecurity and protecting all of your stuff, was hacked, and they're the ones who gave out all this stuff, in the past, and it seems to happen all the time. There's Target had a breach, and Yahoo had a breach, and so cybersecurity is, an issue in the first place. But it's really ironic and kind of disturbing that the protector of all this information that's supposed to be reporting and keeping us safe was actually hacked, and now it's all out there. So take action, don't delay. If the server's down, just keep at it, you'll get through. And then I personally set a reminder on my phone so that on September 12th, which is when I can now go back and take the next steps, I'm reminded to do it. You have to do both. You can't just click on it now and forget it. You actually need to go back, and I'll tell you what the next steps are as I uncover them. But right now, that's the first thing. So I'm going to pause and see if there's any questions or comments. And Charles, I'm going to ask for your help on this.
Someone says, is it too late if it occurred in July?
No, it's not too late if it occurred in July, because when you go through this process, my understanding is that they'll give you the information to check your credit now, and to the extent that there was a new credit card applied for, whatever, you'll discover it now, and you'll take corrective measures. So my gut tells me that it was only announced now, and I don't have any information. This is just pure speculation. But Charles asked me earlier, and this was my response: if this thing happened in July, why are we learning about it in September? And my gut tells me that it was for intelligence gathering. So they were probably working with whatever authorities and the government and trying to figure out whatever it was. But they needed to keep it open to gather as much information, because I think once they went public with it, chances are whoever stole this, their behavior changed. Either they disappear, or they pause, or they, I don't know, they do whatever criminals do. I have no idea. But I think that's why it happened, and I think taking action now is much better than waiting a month, a year, 10 years. So do it. What else?
Some people joined in midway.
Okay.
So they want to know how it relates to Airbnb. When they joined, you were talking about credits. Maybe just a little. Cool.
So I guess we had some people that joined in a little bit late, and they're trying to figure out how this relates to Airbnb. And the simple answer is credit relates to everything, but it's critically important to real estate and mortgages in specific. So if you're asking a bank to loan you money, they're going to check your credit score. And if your credit score is weak, it's not going to be helpful at all. If your credit has been stolen, your identity's been stolen, you're going to spend days, weeks, maybe even months trying to clean it up, and you could lose a deal, right? So you may have found your perfect place, you were looking for it, you go to apply for the mortgage, you've got great credit normally, turns out, oops, somebody stole your identity, you didn't realize it. That's not the time to start the cleanup. The time to start the cleanup is now, so that when you do find that dream property or whatever, you can act with good faith and good credit, and you're good to go, and you get a yes.
Can you just tell them that I'm going to put the link in the description? I'm not allowed to put it in the chat.
Okay. Charles is going to put the link in the description, and the reason is that it can't go in the chat. YouTube apparently blocks the link in a chat. So as soon as this is done, we'll go ahead and put the link there. And I would encourage you to, click on it immediately. And if it doesn't work, just come back. It will work. But as you can imagine, this is a really, really big deal. We're not the only people that are focused on this. There's a ton of attention. It's been on all the news channels. And I just really thought it was important to try and get the word out as quickly as possible. So the link will be in the video as soon as we're done.
Going once, going twice.
Okay, friends, it's Friday. It's September. I don't know. I wish everybody who's in Hurricane Irma's path or in Hurricane Harvey's path, and I guess there's a major earthquake in Mexico and forest fires, and it seems like there's a lot of disruption, and I hope everybody's safe and sound, and that if you're hosting people, that they're safe and sound too. It's added responsibility. It's like anything else. If you've got a problem and now you have total strangers there, they're people, and you got to make sure they're safe and sound. So our prayers and thoughts are with everybody, and we hope everybody comes through this stronger and better, as we know it will be. But just thinking about you. So anything else? Going once?
That's it.
Going twice? If you like this, please go ahead and like it. If you thought this was helpful to yourself or anyone else, please share it. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. We'd really appreciate it. But we'd love to hear from you. If you have comments, if you're a credit expert, if you've had bad credit, it's been stolen, anything like that, please share it with the community, because the more that we share with each other, the more we learn from one another. I'm just one individual. Even though I wear glasses, I'm not that smart. So, please comment and let us know what you think. Like the channel, subscribe. Thanks so very much. Have a great weekend, everybody, and please stay safe. Thank you. Have a great day.